Too thighs.
Thank you. I was, just last week, I Googled what I Googled was startling statistics about stress, which this is completely aside from my presentation, but I learned from someone else that if you want some interesting information, you just Google startling statistics about, and then whatever you want, and you can get all sorts of really cool information. Handy tip, and it's free. But what I Googled, what I found out was that last week, and this was data that was as of January 2019, 75% of adults reported experiencing moderate to high levels of stress in the past month, and nearly half reported that their stress has increased in the past year. Can anyone relate to that? No. Liar! 80% of workers feel stress on the job, and nearly half say they need help in learning how to manage stress. 42% say their coworkers need such help. And I kind of wonder how they know that. Interesting. My belief, and I had 17 years of experience when I was working for other people, and I just hit 19 years in running my own business. And what I have found and what I've seen is that stress is often related to time management. And it's having enough time to do the things that we want to do. And based on what I saw out there, I created what I call, so this is so weird. I have to say, I don't know how this happened, but this is not the font that all my things were in. It was a much, much larger sans serif font. So I don't know how this happened in translation. But anyway, I'm sorry. This is a horrible thing to say. I know you can't read this, but that's not the font I had in there. So in any case, I created what's called the state of mind model. Getting a little feedback. State of mind model. And here's what that is. When I was out in the workplace and working with my clients, I see 6 different states of mind. And if you look at the bottom, the first one on the right there is panic. And panic is what happens when the client moves up the date, you realize you're not going to be able to hit payroll. I mean, it's something, you've waited till the last minute to do something, and now you have to turn this thing in. Whatever it is, somebody calls in, and if you work in a retail situation, a bunch of people are calling sick, and all of a sudden you don't have anybody to manage the register, whatever it might be, but it's panic. Some people can get excited living in the panic state because it's a rush. And a lot of people who put things off until the last minute and say they do their best work at the last minute when they really don't, but they do it because they like to live in that rush panic state. They get a high out of it, a natural high. Next to the left of that is anxiety. And anxiety is just living under a dark cloud. It's just waiting for the shoe to drop. It's not feeling like you're never going to have enough business, or feeling like you can't control what's going on in the outside environment, maybe in the political situation, whatever it might be. But it's just this low-level gray cloud that you're constantly living under that is stressful and depressing. Right above that is complacence. And complacent people are the ones who are phoning it in, although they would probably be too lazy to pick up a phone. They are perhaps this close to retirement, or they work in such a dysfunctional environment that they've just given up. They figure that nothing they do is going to make a difference. However, the one thing that complacent people are not complacent about is complaining. So a complacent person can bring down a small organization, a team, even a small business with their toxicity and trying to bring people along with them with their negative attitude. So let's get happier here and move to the top of the scale. On the left in the green, you see striving, and that's something we're all very familiar with. If you're in this room, you're trying to do business better. So striving, more business, more love, more friends, more money, more success, more fitness, whatever it is that you're looking for, that's in the striving area. And in the pink on the right is joy. Joy is landing that big account. It is seeing your first child, grandchild, niece, nephew. It is the breeze that hits your face when you walk out of the airport to the balmy breezes of Mexico or the Bahamas. Joy are those fleeting times that are absolutely memorable, but they're also a little less frequent. I don't know anybody who lives in a constant state of joy. If they did, I would question what they're taking. And honestly, I'd probably find them annoying. And in the middle at the top is contentment. And that's the entire thrust of what I believe we need to be focusing on with the way we manage our time. Contentment means a sense of peaceful happiness. There's a reason why it is separate from complacence, and that's because when I talk about being content with how you spend your time, some people say, well, content, why would you settle for that? It doesn't mean that. Content means a sense of peaceful happiness about the choices that you've made, about the work that you've done, about the effort that you've put forth. If we were to look at these states of mind and how much time we spend in them, this is probably what it would look like right now. So the bad stress in this pie chart, the bad stress that kind of looks like dirt pie, is down at the bottom. All those feelings at the bottom create bad stress. To the left, we might spend a little bit of time in contentment, that little tiny piece, like recognizing, yeah, I did a good job about something, but not nearly as much as we should. Striving, we are completely familiar with. Always trying to check more things off of the to-do list, accomplish more, do more, be more. And joy kind of hits you in the face in a good way. So that happens, but again, maybe not as often as it could. I want to change that. If you want to be successful in today's crazy busy environment, there are two skills that you must get good at. The first is choosing. One of the reasons why we don't choose is because there are so many options. And when we don't choose, what we end up doing is having mismatched priorities, multitasking, and there's an entire method that I will share with you to determine what choices you should make, but today we're going to talk about just a few of them. This is the Making Minutes Matter method, and you can see it starts with core values and it ends with activities and tasks. And because of the time that I have today, we're only going to go through a few of those, but I want to start with core values and explain why it's so important that you know them and where it is in this process. You often see when you talk about mission, vision, values, that the core values is in the third position. That you figure out what your mission is, whether it's your business mission or your personal life mission, that you figure that out, and then you figure out what your vision is, and then beyond that you figure out what your core values are. I think that's completely messed up. And in fact, when I worked in the corporate world, I really wasn't into the whole mission, vision, values thing because none of the corporations I was involved with ever lived by what they said. It was this thing that was in a frame by the elevator that no one ever read and no one ever lived by. So I thought, well, that's just a bunch of, hooey. Well, when I looked at it differently and when I did something in my life that completely changed how I looked at everything and how I decided about everything, I saw how it can have some value. So first we're going to start with core values. And what I'd like you to do is look at this list. And can you all see that one? This one's going to be a little bit too light, but can you see that one? I want you to take just a couple of minutes, and these are not all of the core values that exist. They're a pretty good array of them. Take a look at this and pick out up to 8 of them that mean something to you and jot them down. Give you about a minute to do that. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to have to go a lot faster. We're not going to be able, I don't want to give short shrift to the exercise, and it's really important that you do this in order to get the information that you need, but I want to show you how this takes place in real life. When I had a crisis in my business several years ago, and it's one of the things that inspired me to write this book, but I want to show you the core values that I have in my business. They are accountability, authenticity, growth, merit, simplicity, kindness, and humor. And everything that I do in my life and in my business goes back to these core values. And I'll tell you, when it comes down to how I use my time, I want to give you an example about how your core values can instruct how you use your time. And please don't, this is absolutely no comment about anybody else who loves this thing, but I'm going to tell you something that I absolutely despise, and that's Facebook. I didn't like it the minute it came out, and for a variety of reasons, I didn't know what to put out there. It was like I didn't really think I had that much interesting to say. I think it's a time suck. I mean, there's all sorts of things. And again, I'm not making any indictment about people who like it, but I did not. However, people kept saying, you really need to get on it. You need to it's a great, inexpensive way to market your business, and you need to have your presence out there. And so I kept on saying that I would. I made a posting schedule that I never followed. And all these different things that I tried to do. I tried to get smarter about it. I did all sorts of things, and I never followed through once with any consistency, more than posting occasionally. Then when this Cambridge Analytica thing came up, that was my excuse. I went out there and I thought, I want to see what they have on me. So I went out and I saw that they had the phone numbers of every single one of my contacts. And I know that lots of other platforms probably have that too, but I was kind of looking for an excuse. So I got off. I completely deleted my profile and I got out. It was only then that I looked back and I saw the reason that I couldn't do Facebook anymore. One, there was no authenticity. I was going to be out there posting stuff that I didn't want to share and liking stuff that I didn't care about, and it was about as inauthentic as it could get. Not only that, but you also create anti-values in this process. And what I saw as me only being on Facebook for what it could do for me was extremely selfish. So I was either going to have to be inauthentic or selfish to stay on Facebook. Once I bumped it up against that, it was really easy to say, I'm out of here. I'm going to move down this chart, which I was planning to do anyway, but I'm going to have to even go faster now. You'll see that it says core values, mission, vision, goals, and then commitments. This is something that you probably don't see in a lot of places, because after you have goals, you have to have commitments. A goal is a really nice thing to have, but what are you committed to do to make it happen? The way I like to say it is that commitments have teeth. It's not just, this is my goal for this year. Here are the things I'm committed to do to make it happen. So you set out your commitments, and from there, you need your activities and tasks, which brings you to the other skill you must have in order to be successful, and it's the ability to focus. And I don't know how many people have been in this position where you've got the thing that you're going to work on, and squirrel, bright shiny object, it's the thing that draws you away from the thing that you know you should be doing. Now I recognize that an ATV riding squirrel having a conversation with the bird could be distracting. But you've got to be able to focus on the things that you have determined are within your core values, that align with your mission and your vision, that move into your goals, that align with your commitments, in order to be able to focus on the tasks that you're going to do to help you achieve what you want to achieve. When you get down to the activities and tasks, what did I want to say about that? Here's what I wanted to say about that. One of the toughest things about achieving the results from the activities and tasks are when you're forced to do things that you don't want to do and you end up procrastinating about them. So I want to give you just one idea about how to think about procrastination in a different way, because I don't know one person who doesn't procrastinate about one thing. Does it not have Q&A either? Okay, cool. I'm going to take 1 minute of Q&A, because this is an important one. If you procrastinate about anything, just think about this. All right, let's just say that this thing that you really don't want to do it is going to take you an hour. All right? What if you procrastinate about it for 2 days? Now, this thing that you don't want to do has now taken up 2 days and 1 hour of your mental energy. So how much sense does it make to procrastinate about it instead of just diving in and getting it done? And there are so many different ways to attack procrastination, but it truly is, in many cases, a mindset thing. So what about a mindset trick to keep you from falling prey to it? Do you want to spend 2 days and an hour thinking about this thing that you hate, or just dive in and do it? In the book, there are a bunch more other ideas on procrastination. That was the chart that we had before. If you put the making minutes matter method into practice, your chart can go from here to here. I am not Pollyanna enough to think that your bad stress is ever going to go away entirely. It's just not. That's just not the way we are. But if you could spend as much time striving, but lots more time in contentment, and a bit more time in joy, how much different would your life be? If you look back at the state of mind model, happiness resides in the top half. The more time you can spend in contentment, striving, and joy is the more time you're spending being happy. You can find all of this and more in my book. Questions?
Questions for Mary?
Mary, is there a point at which striving, which is something that we all do and are is essential to our happiness, as you suggested, but is there a point at which that striving creates stress for us?
It is if you don't combine it with contentment. Because if you are constantly focused on more with no time spent congratulating yourself, even for a few seconds, for what you did, then it can be too much, because you can't look toward the future at the expense of what you've done right now. So the contentment is not to say, oh, I'm going to do an hour of work and then spend an hour patting myself on the back. It's simply, oh, I attacked this, I did this, I kind of didn't want to, but I did it. I'm great, and move on and do something else. It's literally seconds. So if you don't spend enough time in contentment, striving can be too stressful.
This isn't a question, but it's a comment about the core values. So I'm one of the people that, when Facebook came out, I hated it. It was like I didn't want it. It seemed like a time waster. But my core values are community and connection. And that, for me, then, is what it means, is that I can make the connections and be part of a community. So it was interesting that I really, because I can see it also as a time waster, but for me, it's the connection and community.
And I think that's a great point, because there's nothing inherently bad about Facebook. It just didn't align with what was really important to me. So there you go. Thank you for that, Karen.
Mary, do you have a strategy for letting go?
Of what in particular?
Letting go of a task, letting go of a goal, letting go of a strategic objective, letting go of an effort.
Yes.
In other words, at the point where you say, I've done this enough, I need to move on.
That whole winners never quit and quitters never win, I think that's garbage. I think smart people know when to quit. And you look at something and it's either not working and you need to shift, or it's something that you wanted and now you don't. I tell this story about we bought a house, the house that I thought I always wanted, and once, I was literally sitting in an empty house waiting for the moving trucks to come and knew I didn't want to live there. But I never would have known that if I hadn't bought it. If my husband and I hadn't bought that house, I would have always thought that was the house I wanted. So sometimes that experience is enough to say, okay, now I know something, I have the information and I can move on. And also, in terms of things, does it need to be done? Do you need to delegate it? Does anybody need to be doing it at all? Those are good things too, to think about whether or not you should be spending your precious minutes on them.
Mary, your framework and your ideas are great. I'm just wondering, on a day-to-day basis, what kind of daily habits do you think would be helpful for somebody who wants to try and at least build this into their daily life?
I'm glad you used that word, because I'm not a huge believer in habits. I'm a huge believer in routines. Habits are things that you do without thinking, and very often when we get into that position where we think that we should be able to do something without thinking, we think we're failing. We have to do a lot of things with conscious effort. I wear my seatbelt without thinking, but I don't do very much else without thinking. So what you need is a routine, and and one of the most important things about the routine would be planning. So you don't need to do the core values, the mission, the vision, the goals, and even the commitments every day, but you need to be looking at your activities and tasks every day, and you need to be planning. If you're a night person, does that say time's up? No, what does it say? Sorry. 1 minute. Contact must not be working that far. If you're a night person, then do your planning for the next day at the end of your business day. If you're a morning person like I am, then do your planning in the morning, but you need to be mindful about the task that you're doing. Just don't go robotically starting your morning, because if we do that, it generally starts with email, which, as we know, is a time suck and generally isn't your highest priority tasks. So plan and have a routine for planning. I even talk about routine reminders. If you're kind of brain dead in the morning, literally have a written list. These are the 5 things I do first thing in the morning, and you look at the list and you do those things so that you don't have to use brain power thinking of these routines.
How do you buy your book?
Well, you can go on Amazon, or I have a few here today. Or they could come to my party. Yes, indeed.
When is your party?
It is, it is a week from Thursday. Please, if you do decide to do that, please let me know. But it's a week from tomorrow from 4:30 to 7.
Where's it at?
At Old Orchard Gallery. Time's up. Thank you.